Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Texas Outlaw Running Talk Show. This is your host, Briston Rains, and today we're having on Matt Zmolek and Julie Kheyfets on. They both recently won the Habanero 100. Matt won the male side and came in first overall, and right behind him was Julie, second overall, first woman-female winner. And they both won the hottest 100-miler in Texas. We're having them both on the show. But before we hop into that, I have a few announcements. We do have a Patreon, so if you want to help support the show for $2 a month, you can click the link below. And we publish a Chill and Ultra Running podcast at least once a month. We're going to work on getting it to 2 times a month here pretty soon. But we're going to be doing that. So if you want to help support the show, click the Patreon link below. Only $2 a month. On December 11th, we're going to be having the Backland. It's the last man standing race on Lake Texoma. It's going to be on the Oklahoma-Texas border just north of Dallas, and it's going to be one of the first last man standing races in the North Texas area. Super excited to put this race on. It's going to be December 11th, 2021. Registration is now open. If you're interested, you can click the link in the description, and we're going to go ahead and hop right into the show. Here's Matt Zmolek. He won the Habanero 100, first place male, first place overall. Here's Matt. Hey everyone, we are with Matt. Matt recently ran the Habanero 100. He got first place. He's the champion of the Habanero 100. And interesting fact about Habanero, it's the hottest 100-miler in Texas. And it looks like there were 70 starters and only 24 people finished, which is quite a big DNF rate. That's a pretty big rate. And Matt actually got first. He's the champion, and he finished in 20 hours and 41 minutes. 100 miles and some really hot Texas weather. So, Matt, how are you doing and how are you holding up? I know it's 2 weeks later now, but right now, how are you feeling about, winning, and has it all set in yet?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really do the races to win or anything.
Yeah.
It just, if that happens, then bonus. So I'm always just happy to finish. And yeah, as far as my legs and everything, like I'm fine. I'm back to running to work every day.
Yeah. Well, man, yeah. So, training going into this, because Habanero, it's a beast of a race, and there's this guy's name's Jeremy Garcia. I follow him on Instagram. He got third actually there, and he did some pretty serious training going into it. So, what does your training kind of look like going into a race like this?
People ask me about training, and I really never know what to tell them because I don't consider anything I do training. I just make sure I go out and run every day. So I run to work, that's in the morning, and sometimes I'll run in the afternoon, but I really don't do much that I would consider training. It's just the race strategy is just go out at conversation pace and just hold that.
Well, man, that is
keep the heart rate down. That's pretty much all I do. I don't think there's anything special about it.
Wow. That is the most, I think that's the most interesting response I've ever gotten on the show. Usually people say, oh yeah, I did this and this, and they did all these things. And you're just, you talked about how you just go to work, you run to work and then run back, I guess.
No, my wife picks me up. What's that?
Oh, how far is it where you work at?
9.5.
Oh, wow.
miles.
Wow.
So I don't like waking up at 3:30 to be there by 5:15 to shower and then be there for the whole day. But it beats spending money on another car.
Yeah, man. Hey, that's pretty amazing. But I was looking at your running career on Ultra Sign Up. I have your results pulled up, and it looks like you've been running races for quite a long time, and your rank is pretty high up there. Do you kind of want to share with us your running journey before Habanero and just kind of like where it all started?
Okay. Well, I've been running, I'd say, my whole life. Like I loved cross country and track in high school. When I got to college, going into college, I already knew that like I wasn't really fast. Like I wasn't bad, but I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I saw plenty of crazy fast people. So I was like, I am definitely not the best. And I did not want to push myself to try to even become that. I just liked running. And so in college, I never even tried out for cross country or track or any of those things. I just kind of ran randomly on my own. We ended up moving out here to Houston, and my wife and I I think I did the half marathon and she did a 5K, and I really enjoyed it. I was like, hey, I haven't done this in forever. and I was going to go back and do it again the following year with her. Well, the price went up, and I was like, oh, this is kind of a lot of money, and it's only 13 miles. I don't want to pay so much money just to run 13 miles. And so I started looking around for other things, and I thought maybe I would do the Houston Marathon, but this was August, I think, and I think it had already sold out. And I was like, well, I'll just keep looking. And I saw this one, and it said Rocky Raccoon 100/50 miles. And I had no idea that stuff like this existed. I was like, whoa, this sounds cool. And I signed up for that, for the 100-miler. Yeah. And I've skipped a whole bunch of my little things that I've done on my own. Before this, a really good friend of mine from high school, we semi keep in touch, and he had told me about doing birthday runs. And I was like, what's a birthday run? He's like, when you go run your age in miles. And I was like, that sounds cool. So I was 28 at the time when he was telling me about it. So I mapped out 28 miles, and I don't think I'd ever run more than like 7 or 8 at a time. First 16 went great. And then the last 10 to 12 miles were it was hell. Like, I couldn't even run. I was just walking the whole time. And I was like, okay, next year, this is not going to happen. So I had to try to figure out how to run something that's long like that. Yeah. And the next year it went fine. It just took a lot of figuring things out. And I'm one that I don't like reading about how other people do it. I wanted to figure out what was going to work for me. Yep. What I came down to was, I think I was just starting out too fast, and I just had to slow down and slow down and slow down, even at the beginning when you have all that energy.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. You know, what I learned with running as well is there's so many strategies and way to go about it, and there's all these coaches with all these different philosophies. But at the end of the day, you know, we're all different and unique runners, and what works for somebody isn't going to work for us. And so I'm totally with you on that. I'm the type of guy to where I don't read the instructions. I figure it out myself and make it myself. And so that's definitely, you know, a good way to go about it as far as, you know, training and everything like that. But yeah, no, I pulled up your Rocky Raccoon. It was in 2011. So
the first one I ever did.
What's the farthest distance you ran before that Rocky Raccoon 100-miler, just out of curiosity?
Like a race?
Yeah.
Or just any run that I've done?
Yeah. Like, what's the farthest distance you did going into that 100-miler?
This was back when our kids were stroller age too. So I was pushing them in a jogging stroller, and my wife worked one night and I was off, and they're like, I want to say 4 and 2 at the time. And I left probably 8 or 9 at night and didn't get home till, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the morning. Did about 37 miles. Wow. They fell asleep in the stroller, and I just sat there and kept pushing them. That was the longest thing that I had done, I think, before I did that 100-miler. But as far as a race, that one half marathon was the longest race I'd ever done before I did that 100. And I just fell in love with it. It was the greatest thing ever. Yeah,
Matt, that's very unique. The way you went about it. Do you happen to know, I don't go a podcast without bringing this guy up. Do you know who David Goggins is?
People have told me about him.
Yeah, you remind me a lot of you're like the Houston version of David Goggins. This guy is a crazy Navy SEAL, super hardcore guy. He went and did a 100-mile race with like no training. But the way you talk about your training style and the way you go about, you know, attacking, you know, and just where you started in running, it reminds me a lot of this guy named David Goggins. After this, you definitely go check him out. Whenever what made you want to sign up for this Abanero 100? It's a 100-mile race in the heat. What makes you want to run something like that?
So I don't quite remember, but so I've been with Rob and his Team Trot trail racing over Texas since the beginning, since before it was even called that. And apparently his story that he tells is that me and another girl, we came up with this. We should put on a 100-miler race in the middle of the summer. I don't remember saying all that, but apparently I did. The part I remember was when he wanted to add 100K to it. And I was like, why do you want to put a kids race in this? We just need the craziest thing ever. Yeah. But ever since it came out, like, I'm like, I need to do this. It's crazy.
So
And
have
it
you done it?
actually,
Have you done it every year going into it?
I've tried it every year. I've only finished it 3 times
Oh
out of the
wow,
6 times that I've
wow.
done it. It's the only race that's really struggled that I've struggled with. But I think I've kind of sort of figured it out. We'll see about it
Yeah,
if that's true for next year.
yeah. I mean, huge congratulations on that win. So going, with the start line, what was your goal for the race? Was it just to finish? Was it to
So
place or beat your
yeah,
personal record? What was your goal going into it?
finishing is always a goal for that race. Other 100 milers, like I know I may not do great with them, but I'm hardly worried about finishing most of the races that I do. This one, I always have that little thing in the back of my head saying, maybe it won't work out. So finishing was definitely the goal. And then because Victor always has to tell me that he's got one more finish than I do. So I'm like, I at least got to keep up the whole be under 24 hours so I can throw that back in his face.
Yeah,
But otherwise, those were the only 2 goals I had going in. And I've done it enough times where I kind of had that I know where I run, I know where I walk strategy. And I just started that off with loop 1 and did pretty much the exact same thing all day, all night.
yeah. I mean, you got to know every corner of the course if you've done it,
Oh yeah,
however
I can
many times, man.
run.
Yeah. Whenever during the race, what point did it start to like hit you, like the wall? Like, what point did you hit that wall where it really started to hurt and the heat started to get to you?
I really felt good. I, I I think I felt great pretty much the whole race. Like
Wow.
I didn't have hardly any down feelings or where I was like, oh my gosh, like this is going bad. Like I felt great the whole time. Um, which isn't always the case, but every now and then I'm blessed with a race where I just feel that way. And that's how that race went. Like I felt amazing the whole time.
Wow.
The first lap, I had forgot my ice bandana and I was like, man, idiot.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I was never feeling overheated or malnourished or like I was ready to bonk or anything.
Wow. That's pretty amazing, man. So what point in the race did you realize you were first and that you might have a shot at winning this?
I don't know what point at night I had crossed the finish line because I was keeping track of my time because I don't run with anything like watches or stuff like that. I just go all off a feel.
Yeah.
So every time I was crossing for the finish line for the laps, I'd look at the clock just to see where I was. And then one of the times at night, I looked to see what place I was because I don't even like knowing that because I don't want it to change my race strategy at all as far as just my pacing. And I saw that I was second. I was like, oh. And then I was like, I'm pretty sure that German's the one that's out in front of me. And I just figured because he was 6 miles in front of me last time. And I just figured he was days out there. He looked like from what I heard from other people, he was doing great. And then on the 13th lap at the far aid station, I got there and just did my normal refill up some ice, take a couple shots of Coke, and be on my way. And I saw him sitting there, and I'm like, whoa, 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 what are you doing here? You're supposed to be way up there. Like, and he didn't look like he was doing too good at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. And when you realized you were in first, did it like kind of make you want to go a little bit faster? Or were you still playing your own game?
It sort of did. Part of that happened to be just because I only had after that there were only 3 more laps, and it's just like you feel that pull, the tractor beam saying, "All right, come on, we can be done, we can be done."
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be. When I started seeing that, okay, I might be getting even way better than just 24 hours. I was like, whoa. Then I wanted a couple friends that they had faster times than me before, and one of them, she always bothers me about, I may only have one finish, but my finish is an hour faster than yours. And so then the new goal became just to obliterate her time as much as I could. But I don't think I changed my pace or anything like that. I just wanted to make sure that I just kept that going and get done before that evil sun came back up and scorched everything.
Yeah. Yeah. How was the sun? Was it really hot? I saw it looked like the second day it was cloudy. Did it affect you a lot, or was it affecting others a lot?
I like I said, I don't think I was too affected by it. The first day it was 6 straight hours of being in the sun. But just having those walk breaks that I put in at all those spots and keeping ice on me, I think that those two things help keep my body temperature down. And I never felt like I was overheated at all.
Yeah. So can you tell us what that moment was like when you finished, whenever it was all finished, you got first place and you're finally done with it? What was that like?
Oh, so the last lap was just like, okay, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go. And I was thinking when I left for my last lap, I was like, okay, if I just do my normal, what I've been doing pretty much all night, I should be able to get under 21 hours. And that was really what I wanted just for that last lap. And I'm going, and oh my gosh, that last lap was just so hard to get myself to go in some of the spots. But when I was coming down up toward the finish line and I could see the clock and it starts peeping out around the corner, and I'm like, it said 20, and then I saw a 4, and I was like, okay, sweet. And I didn't push myself anymore, and I was like, oh, that's all I wanted, was to be under 21 hours. And then someone said something to me like that I had taken the course record too, and I was like,
Wow.
I didn't even know that I was close to it. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was such a great feeling. And then to be done too. Every time I finish a race like that, it's always great to just be done, to know that you went through that and you conquered it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that's pretty amazing. I mean, you're out there 21 hours just pushing your body to your limit. Um, and I haven't, so personally, I haven't ran a 100 miler yet. Still on the to-do list, but from what I've heard, it's just like this almost like overwhelming feeling of like, wow, like did I really just do that? Like I'm so glad it's all over at the same time. It's kind of like just a lot of mixed emotions and things. So what'd you end up doing right after you finished? Did you go and eat like some pizza, or what's your
I
kind of
sat
post
under I
race?
sat on the ground.
Oh, okay,
And then
okay,
finally I was like, are there chairs over here that stanky, sweaty bodies can sit on that someone's not going to mind? And I just sat there. And then Julie came in about a half hour after me. And then German came in a bit after that. And I just sat there,
yeah,
and that's pretty much it. And I ate a little bit of stuff. And then we just ended up going home a few hours later. But I didn't do anything, just sat.
yeah,
Was
yeah.
happy to be done and off my feet.
Yeah, well, congratulations, man. That's like a huge feat. And so like, what's your next goal in running? Or do you have any big races in mind coming up that you wanna
Uh,
do good
The only
in?
thing I'm signed up for right now, Rob has he has a last man standing race, which I've never
Yeah,
done one of those before.
yeah,
So I have no idea how that's going to go.
yeah. That should be
Um,
fun. Yeah,
nah, if fun's the right word.
yeah.
But the next big race that I have is Brazos 100
Okay,
at Brazos Bend, and it's the 100-mile trail championship for the country.
yeah. Matt, can I ask you a question? Because you are a very unique individual, and I mean that in a good way. Um, what is your why for running? Like, why do you push yourself through these things, and why do you run?
Why do I run?
Yeah,
Um, Besides just that I love to run, like I just love the feeling I get from it. But I was watching some movie, I don't remember what it was, and it made me think why I run. It had nothing to do with running. Just had people, I think it was someone, they had some really hardship in their life. And I'm
yeah,
like, man, I've never had any of these kind of hardships in my life, things I've needed to overcome or to prove myself to people. But with running, what I love about it is um, it's hard. It's hard to go those distances. And it maybe my 100 miles is way more than someone else can do, and maybe they would get the same feeling of accomplishment from going a half marathon or a 5K or something like that. But there's things for me where I know that I can do those, and it's not that I don't feel like I can do the 100 miles, but every race I have, pretty much I get to those points where I'm like, why did I sign up for the 100 miles? Why couldn't I have just done the 50 or the 25 or something shorter? I could be done right now. I could be just enjoying life and chilling with everybody else just talking, but I'm still out here busting my balls, going and hurting. And when I get done, I'm just like, whew, I'm so glad I did it, because I overcame that
yeah,
and I pushed myself and kept going and running. It always does that for me. there's so many times where I'll be like in the middle of a race or close to the end, and I start thinking about all that, and I'm like, I'll just start crying. And then
Yeah.
they're happy tears, and yeah, like I'm trying not to right now because
Yeah.
I'm really reliving some of those times where I just know how great it feels. But the great feeling comes from pushing through all that. And so for me, running gives me that artificial hardship in my life that I have to overcome.
Yeah, that was really touching, Matt, especially for me. Running is kind of the same thing for me. And I somebody posted in the DFW running group on Facebook. They posted a thing on like why do you run, or something, and I wrote a little poem on there, um, and it was kind of something similar like that. I can't find it right now, but basically, I said it was like dear running. I was like, you are the wisest person I know. You've taught me discipline and just all these different things and how like life impacting running is. And it's true. Like running it's like our best friend, and it's who we can go to no matter what we're going through, and it can always help us get through like whatever we're going through. And it teaches us so many things in life and in relationships and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Like I know I'm a better person because of all this running that I've done, and not better like in the sense of healthier or anything like that, but just the quality of the type of person that I am. Like I know I'm a better person now than I was 10 years ago when I started all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was really good, Matt. And I think a lot of people who truly love running, they can definitely relate to that too. And hey, man, I always tell myself I'll be running until the day I'm 80 years old, but let's see what the
That's what I
knees
say
are.
too, but my number's 120.
Oh, okay.
I'm only through the first quarter of my life.
Yeah.
Sorry, first third.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's how I see it. And I know this is a little off topic, but there's this guy I look up to, and he says it's a four-quarter game. And it could be 25, 50, 75, 100, or 20, 40, 60, 80, however you want to look at it. But it's a four-quarter game. And um, like I'm only in my first quarter. Probably in like your second quarter right now, but a lot of people they worry too much about the things that are so short term and what's in this quarter. But like we have like 2 or 3 quarters left of our life, and so um, yeah, it's a four-quarter game. We'll see what happens in the last quarter, but
Oh yeah, because I plan on doing this forever, like
yeah,
until I can't. And if I couldn't run, if something happened where I couldn't keep running, like I've people have asked me and I've thought about it. I'm like, I don't know what I'd do. Like
yeah,
because I would need something to fill that void of not being able to get out there and challenge myself like that. And
yeah.
I really don't know what I would do if I couldn't run.
Yeah, I think about that all the time, and I was like, if I couldn't run, I'd pick up cycling or swimming. I would just have to do something like be in the gym, something like I just have to have, that workout. And I talked about this with a guest on the other show that we had, but we talked about how running is a drug. It's our drug, but it's like a good drug, and so
I need it every day,
yeah, and it's like
even
when
if
you
it's
don't
just
have it, it's
walking.
withdrawal.
Like I need it.
Yeah, yeah. But hey, let's just give a thank you to running for all that's done for us. Um, so I have these questions that I ask every guest on the talk show. I'll run through some of them with you. This
Okay.
is my favorite one right here. If you could only pick one song for runs for the rest of your life, what song would you choose?
So is that a song that like represents running or just something that I like? Because I
Yeah.
never listen to music when I run. So
Oh, okay. If you could
when I'm
only
running
listen
to
to
work,
one song for the rest of your life, what song would it be?
oh gosh, because I don't even know that I would listen to a song. I'd rather listen to a book.
Mm. All right. What book? All right. We'll change it up for you. What book would you listen to? One book for the rest of your life, if you could only pick one.
Oh, I'd have to go with The Alchemist.
Mm.
I really like the story behind the book.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. A lot of people they give me interesting answers. I've gotten some weird answers on that. My answer's Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus, but some other people they got some. I think Run Bum, Sean Blanton, his was like Lady Gaga, some Lady Gaga song that was actually like not the best. He talks about how he would choose that one. So what is your second question? What is your pre-race day ritual?
So what I used to do, because my wife and I and the kids, we used to camp every time at the race. We would just be in a tent, and it was just get up, get into my whatever I'm racing in, poop, have a couple slices of pizza because that's usually what we had for dinner, and then just walk over the start line with my stuff and put it down and be like, all right. I never really had anything set, and now I don't know if I'm just getting not old, because I'm not going to be old for a long time, like another 40, 50 years, but we've been doing hotels now, and I feel like I'm pampering myself too much.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like, pretty much the only pre-race thing that I do is just make sure I get all that poop out, so I don't have to worry about that during the race.
Yeah, that's a big part of running. It really is. It can like make or break your race performance. So before I send you off, though, what I let guests do is I let you give one piece of advice or motivation, just something for the listeners that they can take away from all this. So what's one thing you would give our listeners to take away?
As far as just anytime people ask me for running strategies of, hey, I'm trying to get into whatever distance and they're training for it, the big thing that I always tell people is, hey, conversation pace is the greatest thing. If you can talk to people while you're out there running, whether you're talking to them or you're just talking to yourself because no one's around, like, conversation pace is my favorite thing. And if you're running too fast to talk, you're either a badass or you're just running too fast.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that advice. Take your easy days easy when you're running. Don't go out way too fast or you're breathing hard. You can't talk. So, yeah, good advice, Matt. All right, everybody. That was Matt Zmolek, and he was a super awesome and amazing guy. I'm going to leave all his social media in the description below. And now we're going to have Julie on, and Julie was the first place winner on the female side, and she also recently won the Brazosbin 100 in 2019 for the USATF 100-mile trail championship. She's a beast of an athlete. She's training for Spartathlon, and this Habanero 100 was actually just a training block for the Spartathlon going on in Greece. And so this episode I recorded of her is super fun. She's a super awesome character, and I hope you guys enjoy. Here's Julie Kheyfets. All right, hey Julie, how are you doing?
Hey, Preston. Good to see you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Huge congratulations on the Habanero 100 win. How does it feel to win the Habanero 100 for the women's side?
Thank you. It was a good race. I didn't know what to expect coming in. It's the hottest race I've ever run.
Yeah,
I love Rob and the truck crew, but this is designed to be a sufferfest. This is made to be a sufferfest, you know?
Yeah, you're from New York, so how's the heat in New York compared to Texas? Like, were you prepared for the heat of Texas coming from New York?
Man, it was a total crapshoot. In New York in the summer, people complain, but it's in the 80s. You know, you get some humidity, but it's tolerable. I mean, Habanero, I think at the start temperatures were in the high 90s.
Yeah.
And with the humidity, the real feel was over 110.
Wow.
So a couple times before the start, I would actually go. There was a bathroom with running water. I would go and douse my shirt. I would take it off, put it under the faucet, put it back on and walk out, and I would be like dead dry in 3 minutes.
Wow.
So yeah, heat management was huge. So was I prepared? I don't think so, but I pulled it off. It was an exercise in learning heat management on the fly, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you were. I got the results pulled up right here. You weren't too far behind the first place guy. You were only looks like 20, 25 minutes behind the guy who ended up getting first. So you're a pretty amazing runner. Actually, I was looking at your profile, and it looks like you won the USATF 100-mile championships for the women's side at Brazosbin last year. And it looks like you have a big running career under your belt. You kind of want to tell us where it all started, where your running journey started?
Yeah, sure thing. So, you know, I didn't run much in college. I'd run 3-4 miles here and there, just jog. And then when I graduated, I actually kind of stopped exercising. I really loved my job. And as you can see from my running record, I'm bad at moderation. So I just worked like really hard, 200%. It was all work. And after a year, people at work came to me and they were like, everyone thinks you're going to burn out. Chill, relax a little bit. And so I was like, okay, I'll get back into running. But then I started running more and more, and every weekend my long runs would get longer and longer. And I hit a point where every Sunday I was running like 20, 22, 24 miles. And I like stumbled into essentially a marathon training plan. And my friends were like, this is essentially training for a marathon. Why don't you just run one? And I grew up in Boston, and I always thought marathoners were just crazy because I'd watched the Boston Marathon, and my parents live around mile 24, and I'd see these people like half dead staggering to the finish, and I was like, who does this? Like, who runs for this long?
Yeah.
But I was going on these long runs anyway, and so I thought, I'll sign up. And my first marathon, I think it was like a Rock and Roll New Orleans or something, 2013. I went out there. I felt really good. I ran much faster than I expected. And then, of course, I signed up for a couple more. And what happened after that was I met a couple of ultra runners in New York here. There's a really good sort of New York, New Jersey ultra running scene.
Yeah.
And so they sort of made me aware of the ultras out there as well. And then I signed up for the 60K in Central Park. So there's a race called Knickerbocker, and it's what is it? It's about 9 and change loops of 4 miles. You're just going circles around Central Park. And I ran that. I loved it. And then from there, it just took off. It feels like once you pass the marathon threshold, there's no stopping. You just keep going longer. Wow. And then I just kept going longer and longer. I ran my first 100-mile at Rocky Raccoon in 2015. Yeah. And then, just settled into the 100-mile distance. That's what feels comfortable to me. And so that's been sort of my distance of choice. But I'll race a little bit shorter up to that. And I have a longer race coming up later this month as well.
Yeah. So when did you start like winning? Because in 2019 you won the USATF 100-mile trail championship at Rouse's Bend. So like when did you start getting competitive, or is it just not competitive for you? You just go out there and leave it all out.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a mix of competing with yourself and competing with others. Ultimately, you want to leave it all out there. Whatever you got that morning, you want to leave it all out there. And for some people, competing with others is a way to do that. It's just motivating to think, I can catch like one more girl up ahead. Yeah. For me, I've never been a really structured runner. Like I'm not the person who has a training plan every single day. I have to hit a certain speed or mileage or something like that. I just put in miles, and my plan is, as long as I run because it makes me happy and it's not a chore, I'll keep running for a long time.
Yeah. So do you have like a running coach, or do you just run kind of like whatever on your own?
I run on my own. I tried having a coach back in 2015. So I hired a coach, had her for about a couple months, and it really didn't go well. Like her training style and mine didn't mesh at all. By the end of 2 months, she had me like just super fatigued, unable to run more than 2 miles. So I said, this is much more detrimental than helpful. I'd rather just do this on my own. I think coaches can be good for a couple different things. If you have trouble getting out the door, a coach is really helpful just to keep you accountable. If you are just starting and you have really no idea where to go, a coach can just point you in the right direction. Or if you are, if you really want those final optimizations to go from 99 to 100%, maybe a professional coach who's there with you can help. But for me, it wasn't that helpful.
Yeah. So when it comes to trail running, ultra running in New York, I know the stereotype is, concrete jungle, but I know outside of New York, there are some very beautiful like mountain ranges. Do you go to trail run? Do you go to those, or how do you train in New York?
Yeah, I wish I could trail run more than I do. I work a pretty intense job, so it takes a bunch of time. So, I slot in running when I can. So usually it's just like, how many miles can I get in before my meetings start for the day? So most of my training is in the city. And most of it is on concrete and pavement. And so actually, when it comes to long road races, that's something my legs are really used to. When it comes to trails, I'll get trail runs in here and there when I can, but it's hard to do it consistently.
Yeah, so training for the Habanero, what did that look like, especially over in New York?
Yeah.
What was your training for Habanero? Were you running like in the middle of the day in a hoodie, or what did that look like?
Yeah, so my big race this year is actually Spartathlon, which
Oh,
is
okay,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
race in Greece. It's 153 miles, and so most of my training has been focused on that. So I've been putting in nothing too crazy, about 70 to 90 miles a week. Um, for heat in particular,
Wait,
I would
did you say nothing crazy, just 70 to 90 miles a week?
nothing crazy by Spartathlon standards. So a good
Okay.
number of folks will put in like north of 100, 120 miles
Wow,
going into
that's a
that.
lot.
There are ultra runners there who are putting in 200 miles a week consistently.
Wow.
So I'm nowhere near that. But that's what my mileage has been for the last 3 months or so, mainly because Spartathlon is coming up at the end of September.
Yeah.
For heat, I would take whatever temperature I get in New York on my long run days. That'd be basically the exposure I had. I was in Colorado a couple of weeks before Habanero and got like 3 runs in 95 degrees,
Yeah.
but with zero humidity. So that's probably the most heat exposure I got. So again, it was a real gamble going to Habanero. I really wasn't sure how I would handle the heat.
Yeah. Yeah. What made you want to do Habanero? Was it just because it was hard and you have this race coming up in Greece, or what was the pull to go all the way to Texas and run Habanero in Cat
Yeah.
Springs, Texas?
Yeah, I was a couple of things. It was really well timed to be a tune-up for Spartathlon. Both the distance and the heat, I thought could be really good. Um, I really love the Texas ultra community. I mean, I came out. So my first 100 mile was in Texas. That was a Rocky Raccoon. I ran Brazos, which Rob and the truck crew put on. I'm coming back for Brazos this year. So whenever I can, I'm now racing out in Texas, and so this just seemed perfect. And man, the community at Habanero is just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to, real quick, give a huge shout out to Rob. Rob has grown
Yeah,
the ultra and trail running community so much, especially in Texas, and it's pretty inspiring. And his story is like pretty amazing too. But yeah, I hear all about this Habanero 100 and like all these people, like the Dallas dirt runners over here in Dallas Fort Worth area, are always
yeah,
it's like the New Year's of their race plan each year. It's like Habanero is at the top of all their list, and that's all we hear about kind of in the trail running community is about Habanero. And so people who don't know what the Habanero 100 is, do you want to tell them and explain kind of like the loops of the race, how many miles it is, and kind of the details of the race real quick?
for sure. So Habanero is a 100 miler. It is flat, so the difficulties of it are not things like elevation, but it's designed to be as hot as humanly possible in that part of Texas. So it's happening in mid-August. Temperatures are in the mid to high 90s. You have huge humidity, so usually
Starting
feels
at
like
noon.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, starting at noon is brutal. Like you're already broiling by the time you're starting. And so basically with a race like that, you're trying to manage the day and really own the night. But the thing is, a lot of people burn out during the day because it's so hot. The finishing rate is usually like 25%.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Um,
extremely low.
if you look at the swag, what they usually do is put the names of all the finishers
Yeah,
on the shirt for next year because there are so few finishers.
yeah. Yeah, it's a very intense race. And in the last recording with the other guy that won it, we were talking about how low the finisher rate was, and it's pretty astonishing
Yeah.
like how few people like actually end up finishing the race. So yeah, it's a very intense and hot race. So what was your goal going into? Did you want to win, or did you just want to finish, or kind of what did that look like?
Yeah, for sure. My sort of baseline goal was just to manage the heat well, manage my nutrition well, etc. Finish, ideally finish under 24 hours. I definitely came in hoping to win and hoping to set the course record. I definitely was eyeing that, but again, it was such a gamble because I never raced anything that hot.
Yeah,
So I knew that I couldn't burn myself out too early, because especially at given how hot it wasn't going to be my fastest 100. I knew that. And so I wasn't there, for a PR, but I was there to really learn and to manage it well.
Yes. Can you take us to the morning of the race? What did it look like at the start line, and kind of walk us through the first few loops and everything like that?
Yeah, it's funny. So because the race starts at noon, I mean, you wake up and you usually have time, and I was there with my friend Stephanie, who was there to run the 50K. She actually got second in the 50K, and then she crewed me all night. And she and I were kind of just sitting there in the morning saying, like, God damn it, Rob, like, let's just get started already, because you have the pre-race jitters and you're ready to go. And you're like, well, it's only 9 a.m. I have 3 more hours. What do I do now? Do I eat? Do I have coffee? So that was the morning. You get there and you see everyone, like a ton of people that camped out, everyone with their cars, lots of tents, lots of the running clubs set up their sort of bigger group tents as well. It's just a big party. Honestly, it's like a running party, and those are the best ultras because that's when the community really comes together. And yeah, so I guess the 100-mile and maybe the 100K started together at noon. So Rob basically gave us a briefing, basically said, like, don't die out there, manage yourselves, like, grab some ice. And we started off. And what was really interesting was it was hard to tell actually what races people were doing, because you had the 100-mile, the 100K starting out. You also had a 100-mile relay. And so you had people who were running in teams of sometimes 2, sometimes 4, sometimes more. And I remember starting out in the front with a couple of guys, and then it was myself and one other guy. And he's like, and I was like, "You're looking good, man. How are you doing? How are you feeling?" He's like, "Good. I'm just doing the relay." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm leading the 100. Oh wow. Okay, I need to take it easy." And so throughout, when I run, I talk to people. Like, people will say, "Why is she so smiley?" But it just makes me happy. It, like, perks people up when somebody says hi. So I got to know a lot of folks on the course, which was really nice. And so I sort of switched off with a couple guys, got to know a couple people, ran a couple miles together. It was nice.
Yeah. It looks like when I saw pictures of the race, it was just a ton of tents, and it looked like it literally looked like just a huge. You talked about it earlier before the show, a suffer fest, just a festival of people suffering. But that's what ultra trail running is all about. That's kind of like why we do it, and can't really explain why. It's just kind of who we are. So
exactly.
So when did you start hitting the wall for the race?
I usually don't actually hit a wall in most of my races.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I'll get tired and I'll get demotivated. Sometimes I'll get like lightheaded if I'm not taking in enough calories. But I've never really seriously hit a wall. I think one of the things I'm very lucky about is that usually my nutrition is good. So I have a really strong stomach. I can usually stomach food. And worst case, I can take in a bunch of calories through liquids. So I know with Habanero, I think at the start in the afternoon, I was just waiting for nighttime. It's just like, when is it going to be 6 o'clock? It was that kind of wait. And then at night it cooled down. It was nice. I mean, nighttime running is hard on its own, just because it's demotivating. Your body gets tired. Like 3-4 a.m. I was falling asleep on my feet.
Oh, wow.
So there are things like that you have to manage. But I never really badly hit a wall and had to pull myself back up out of it.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So whenever you were finishing in the last few laps and you saw that you were kind of in the lead, did you start to pick up the pace? Did you try to, were you trying to get first place?
Yeah. So what was interesting was because it's a looped course, so it's 16 loops of about 6.7 miles. The volunteers at the aid stations actually had a hard time keeping track of where everyone was. So at some point, someone told me the second woman was like only half an hour behind me, and then I booked it. I think that was like maybe it was nighttime, maybe lap 13 or so.
Oh wow, yeah.
And it was one of my fastest miles that late in the race. I was like, I need to get ahead of this. Yeah. I need a clear separation. And then I remember passing the second guy and sort of settling nicely into second place. And then I think with 1 or 2 loops to go, maybe with 1 loop to go, my crew, Steph, said, well, the first place guy is about 10-20 minutes ahead of you. And I was like, I'm going to let him go. So I don't have it in me to chase him down. I'll take first woman if I can keep it. But, that first or that last loop, you're constantly glancing over your shoulder. You're
Yeah.
like, is she there? Where is she? Just in case.
Yeah. Yeah. So whenever you were hitting your last lap, how did that feel that you were finally about to finish?
Yeah, it felt amazing, but the last lap is still 6 miles, and so it's not like the last 100-meter sprint. One thing so usually I manage my feet fairly well. What I do is actually tape the entire bottom of my feet, which holds up super well.
Oh, wow.
It did not hold up here at all.
Oh, really?
Because what I didn't realize going in was that the course was like almost entirely sand.
Oh yeah, yeah. I saw Rob
like,
post a nice picture of a dump truck pouring sand on the course.
Oh,
Everybody's gonna run,
dude,
so.
I'm gonna have nightmares about that sand. It's so unstable, and it just gets everywhere. And so I didn't even bring gaiters, So my feet got like the most intense exfoliation. Basically, they were rubbed raw. And so by the last loop, I'm just running basically with my feet entirely covered in huge blisters.
Wow.
And so it was super painful. So I just tried to keep moving and get to the finish.
Yep. So how did that finish feel when you're finally done with it all? How did that feel?
It felt amazing.
Yeah.
And by that point, actually, the sun is back up, and like dawn is like a whole new life if you run through the night. So it felt amazing. And then I was really happy to sit down.
Yeah. Well, huge congrats on that win for the women's side. And I think Bam, I think that's what he goes by, Bam.
Yeah.
He wasn't too far right behind you, and all three of y'all finished really close together. So how close y'all all finished together. So
Bam and I kept leapfrogging each other actually throughout the race. Yeah, we chatted a bit.
Yeah, he's a super cool guy. Yeah, he was training hard for that race. So
yeah,
but that's pretty awesome though. So what's this race you're running again in Greece? That this race was kind of like a training block for. What's that race in Greece called?
Yeah, it's called Spartathlon.
So for the listeners, if you read Eat and Run by Scott Jurek, he actually talks about this race, and he talks about how like it sounds like a pretty amazing race in his book. I haven't actually seen any video footage or anything of it like that, but you looking forward to that race though? What are your goals going into Spartathlon?
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. It's a super historic race. So if you're familiar with the legend of the marathon, so the marathon emerged supposedly when this messenger ran from Athens to Marathon and then sort of fell dead, and that was 26 miles. That's actually an incorrect interpretation of the legend. The guy actually ran from Athens to Sparta, which is much farther, to request the help of the Spartans for the Athenians in the Battle of Marathon. And so he ran 153 miles.
Oh, wow.
And the legend has it that he started one morning and got there by nighttime the next day. And so basically people looked at this and said, maybe that's roughly 36 hours. Let's see if we can run that distance and that course in 36 hours. And that's what the race is. So it's really exciting because also like every country basically sends a team or a group of folks who've qualified. And talk about big ultra running parties. I mean, you'll get like 400 runners and their crews, people decked out in flags.
Wow.
From all around the world. It's amazing. I really can't wait.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's quite a few people's bucket list race. It sounds like a pretty amazing race, not just like in the United States, but worldwide. It sounds like a lot of people really look up to like that race. So I'm super excited for you. We'll all be rooting for you down here in Texas.
Thank you.
But I think that's going to wrap up everything. But before we leave, I ask every guest we have a couple questions. First question, if you could pick only one song for runs for the rest of your life, what song would you choose?
Yeah. So my music strategy is really weird. What I do is listen to the same song over and over again. I listen to it like 200 times.
So
I did this at Brazos. Yeah. So I did this at Brazos. I did this at Habanero. And it really helps me to get in the zone. Like I completely lose track of time of everything else. It's just a song with a steady beat that's on a constant loop. And usually it's not even like especially good music artistically. It'll be like a house song, whatever it is. I can't even name the songs I listen to. A bunch of them are like political speeches that are inspirational set to music, whatever it is. But anything that's upbeat and fast that I can just set in the loop, that's what keeps me going.
Wow, that's very interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone actually doing the doing that? Everyone says it sounds like torture. So that's very interesting. What's your pre-race day ritual? So like, what do you do before all of your races?
Yeah. The one thing I try to do is get enough sleep. You know, a lot of ultras, especially if you're running 100 miles or more, you're running through the night or a portion of the night, and it can be hard to sleep before because you have so much energy, you're so pumped up. So I just try to go to bed early and get as much sleep as I can. Try to hydrate, try to roll out and stretch. Basically, all those things that are going to get completely depleted during the race, I try to stock up on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about you, but every time I'm about to go to sleep before a big race, I can't go to sleep at all. I'm just too excited for the race.
Your brain is just running,
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
But our last question is, what do you love about running?
Yeah. I really love the community. It's like, it's a self-selected community of people who are really passionate and really humble and are really willing to fail epically because they're taking on such huge challenges, and there's just such support. So like, if you're ever out in a race, man, like, you're there on a journey with all these other people. You talked about competition. There's certainly competition, but more than anything, you're there going through something really hard together, and that really brings people together. And so that's huge for me.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that one. I think I answered this question on another show, and that's literally like, it's pretty close to what I said too. It's really about the community. And I think a lot of ultra and trail runners can definitely agree with that, and that's kind of a big drawing point to the sport, is community. So it wouldn't be what it is without the running community. So
100%. Yeah.
So right before we end this, what's one thing of value you can give to the listeners listening right now? One way they could just take home.
Yeah. One thing that always stands out to me is that I think running, especially ultra running or distance running, is probably 10% physical, 90% psychological.
Yeah.
So if you do anything at all, I would really figure out what are the psychological blocks or challenges that you have, and really focus on those. And that might be just getting out the door. People lay out big training plans and they're like, man, I was supposed to run 10 miles yesterday and I didn't have time, so I didn't do it. Go out for 1 mile. Go out for 5 minutes. Just make it so easy for yourself that you're just out there. Or they're psychologically afraid of racing in the heat. Just go try it out. What's the worst thing that can happen? You drop, whatever. So really figuring out those things and working on them, that is worth to me 1,000 times more than like putting in 10 more miles a week.
All right, everybody. That was Julie Kheyfets, super amazing person. Right before we wrap up the show, go ahead and leave us a rating on podcast. So if you're on Apple Podcasts right now, just go and scroll down and leave us a rating. And that is the end of the show. Thanks so much for everybody who listened, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Texas Outlaw Running Talk Show.